as it turned out, you were working so hard for everyone in Kenya, all the people to be included, those that would be the most without a voice, I guess I would say. Yes. And so then it turned out that you became a you became a candidate for the Supreme Court, for Deputy Chief Justice. How did that happen?
And so we make this constitution. And of course it is providing opportunities which were non-existent before that constitution. That the appointment of judges was a secret thing. Nobody knew about the process. All we had was so and so has been appointed a judge, and mostly it was men. The appointing official was the president. The criteria was very, very opaque. So we didn't know if you had a political relative who had the president's ear, then chances are that you would become a judge. And of course, rarely were they women, although a few came in. But the opaque nature of appointment of judges made many women not to join the judiciary. So we get this new constitution which says now the process of appointment is open, it is transparent, it is accountable. Anybody can apply.
To the Judicial Services Commission.
Yes, and the Judicial Service Commission was also empowered in the new constitution. So we apply through an open and accountable Judicial Service Commission. And so I knew the constitution, what it holds for women and any other Kenyan who would want to join the judiciary. And so when they advertised for the positions of Chief Justice and Deputy Chief Justice and judges of the Supreme Court, I applied because I knew the opportunity was there.
And you said, it's very interesting, you said earlier, years ago, that you thought about going to the judiciary if you ever got the opportunity, and then you had that opportunity. The hearings were very grueling. They were on TV. So what advice do you have? Again, this was another very difficult, well, of course, everything you've done your whole life, you've been a fighter your whole life. What made those hearings even more difficult than other challenges you had faced?
I think for the first time, a woman is gunning for this very powerful position. This is not something Kenyans were used to. The process, the interviews were so vicious. I would say vicious. I don't know if it was out of a lack of understanding of as a human resource institution as JSC is, that they could have done it differently. But nonetheless, that is how they did it. And just subjected me to so much venom and viciousness. At that time, I was undertaking my PhD studies at the School of Law, University of Nairobi. And my topic was the human rights of LGBTQ people. And that is a no-go zone topic in Kenya, and indeed in Africa. Now, I got that topic because as we were making the constitution, as we were receiving public views, groups bringing their views, the LGBTQ people came and brought memoranda that they are marginalized, their rights are abused on a daily basis, And nobody would listen. Nobody would listen to these people. But then I happened to be chairing the Committee on the Bill of Rights. And I sat down and I'm like, but how can people, real people, come to you with memoranda and you throw their memoranda under the table? And that's what we did. So they don't appear anywhere. And it was deliberate. Please, if you insist on including these fellows, we shall lose out on the Constitution. So hide their views and we move on and get a new Constitution. So that set me thinking, who are these people? And why don't we want to hear about them? And that's how I picked it as a topic to study. So when I go for my interview, they have, of course, researched about me and found that I'm researching about LGBTQ people. And so I was grilled on that. How can you be researching about gay people? And it was I was really harassed on that one. And you see, as you are being harassed, the street people out there are also getting it and just harassed all over, even on the streets, the churches, the religious people. Oh, she can't be the right person because she's researching about LGBTQ. And then the other issue I was harassed on was my marital status. I got divorced years back. It is a legal status. A divorcee has rights. And when I went there, I knew I was a divorcee, but they bring it up. Oh, you divorced your husband. Where is your husband? You know? And I'm like, no, I don't have one. And I divorced him years back. But I'm a human being. The Constitution doesn't bar me from aspiring. So I had to go through all that.
And yet, through all that, you kept going. Like you said, you just kept going, and eventually you were appointed by the president as a deputy chief justice and on the Supreme Court.
Yes, I kept going. I was not being deterred. In fact, I got stronger. As they harassed me, I got stronger, looked them in the eye. I said, I'm on LGBTQ, these are human beings. I'm an academic. And if you, as a researcher, you are not curious, then you can never be a researcher. I'm curious because I have met them in the process of my work, and I want to research on them. As for my marital status, I'm divorced. I haven't hidden that. And I became almost defiant. I was just defiant, and I got strong and looked them in the eye. And I'm being asked, oh, are you researching on LGBTQ? Are you gay? Are you gay yourself? No, you don't need to be gay to research. Why don't you separate between academic work and one's being? I mean, I went through so much, but I became defiant and just stood strong and kept going.
Right, and then you got appointed by the president as on that position. You served for a little more, I think, than a year and a half, and while you were in that position, again, passionate about women. I remember you visiting the women's prisons. I think you were the first of that rank to go to a women's prison. It was very important to you to let the women see judges and for judges to understand the circumstances of women and others in prison.
Yeah.
And you were also involved in a transformational document setting out the plan for the judiciary.
Absolutely. I visited a few prisons just to understand what prisoners go through, and especially women. And I went to the biggest women's prison, Langata prison, and found women with babies. They have been jailed. And for what? Because a poor woman stole a packet of milk to go and feed her baby. She's so poor, she has nothing. So she stole this packet of milk, I think somewhere in Limuru. And so the judge convicted her and fined her, I think, 100,000 or 10,000. And because she couldn't afford, she's jailed with a baby, the same, jail with grown-ups. And look at the offense. And then we have the extra, what do we call it? The extramural sentencing, where you don't have to jail people. You can commit them to do community work. That is now in our law. So in my mind, why didn't this magistrate order this woman to go and sweep around the prisons or pick rubbish or come to clean the courts in lieu of being jailed for lack of money to pay fine? So I just got to understand. I wanted to understand what goes on. And that, in my view, would inform the kind of reforms that I was going to undertake. And then my boss, the Chief Justice, asked me to form a committee to start a transformation program for the judiciary. And because we found so many challenges in the judiciary, we had to have a framework within which to address, to undertake the reforms. And so I started the Judiciary Transformation Framework, which looked at the various aspects of the judiciary, the areas which needed reform, so that we come up with a comprehensive and integrated program for reforms.
And that transformational document covered a 5-year period, and it wasn't just aspirational. There were actually targets and deadlines set that dealt with case management on the civil side, on the criminal side, the entire look at the judiciary.
Yes.
Unfortunately, you were unable to see that through because of that unfortunate incident at
the village market.
The village market. And ultimately, you had to resign the position. That was a crushing situation. And yet you kept going there too. Tell us about that. You know, how you responded to it and some of the lessons that you learned.
I was very happy that my contribution to the judiciary, even within that short period, can never be ignored. The Judiciary Transformation Framework formed the basis for the reforms that the judiciary has undertaken to date. It was the basis. And so other regimes have been building on it. So I'm happy that I did that. It was very, very grueling also, because there was so many reports that had been undertaken about the judiciary and its problems, which we had to read through and put together and pick issues from, points from, to make the transformation framework. So that was my contribution, and I'm very, very proud of it. It formed the basis of the transformed judiciary that we are having.
And now every 5 years,
yes,
that framework is updated.
It is updated. So depending on what has been achieved and what hasn't been achieved, then the new regime goes on with it. The current regime of Chief Justice Martha Koome is focusing mostly on access to justice, because the foundation has been done. And so
and of course the Chief Justice was very active in FIDA.
Yes.
I remember.
She was my vice chair when I was chair.
Right.
So we have hung together in the women's movement for years. She was my very able vice chair. When my presidency at FIDA ended, then she took over from me as the chair.
Yes, and FIDA. I remember meeting her as chair.
So your question about the incident, very, very unfortunate. Didn't anticipate, but I think it had to do with the way I handled my security. And you will interview Chief Justice. She will just tell you how a Chief Justice or a Deputy Chief Justice is protected in this country. It's not like in America where I saw they are easy, they can go by car minus security. I think that happens in your place. But here, they throw a whole ring of security around you. And the first week in office, number 2 in the police came to induct us on how to handle your security. Never be found alone, never walk on the street, never be found in a crowd. If you go to a place where you are caught up in a crowd, find a way of leaving. If you don't have your security, and then explain why. For example, if you go to a place where they queue, like in a mall, for example, I think because of security situations, then people have to queue to be
let in order
to be checked.
Yes.
Now, as a Deputy Chief Justice, enjoying that high security concern, I couldn't queue. The instructions are, you walk through, and then if they require, you explain. And so that is what happened. I didn't have my security. It was around Christmas time, soon after Christmas. And my high security bodyguard she was a lady, she had kids. So she had asked me if she could take them home for Christmas. And being a mother and knowing kids and Christmas, I said, yeah, you can go. In any event, I'm not going anywhere. You can stay. So at the time when the incident happened, I didn't have security at all, except my driver, who is also an armed security man. So when I went to the mall, I was running to get medicine for my son, who was ill. And I was actually rushing, and I didn't have security. So my bodyguard, my driver, dropped me and parked, waited for me. I told him, don't follow me. I'll just run and get the medication. And so when I reached there, I passed. I didn't go through the process of being very frisked. And then she followed me, and of course, then I explained that you are Deputy Chief Justice. That is the reason I passed is because I shouldn't queue. And she kept saying, no, I don't care who you are. I said, no, I'm a security person. She said, I don't care. I said, no, I'm a security person. And so we had that fracas. And my driver, who is an armed fellow, he checked his watch, I'm taking too long. So he came. And of course, he has a gun. And so that is where the guns were. There was a gun. My driver had a gun.
So,
but those were the circumstances.
Yes, and that incident led to massive publicity. Publicity and criticism, and ultimately you decided to resign.
It was horror. And in my view, I kept quiet because in my view, it was something I was going to explain. But then, you know, the publicity it got, 3/4 of it malicious. I just found I couldn't bear it anymore. I resigned. I resigned. It wasn't easy. But what hurt me most was I was being depicted as a horrible, arrogant human being who looks down upon people, looks down upon poor people. And I have started my life. I have lived for poor people. For me, that is what really broke me. That I could be turned into this person who doesn't care about people, who looks down upon people, you know. But it came to pass. It passed, and I picked my pieces and moved on. Went back to the university and completed my PhD, and fortunately I was employed as a lecturer.
Yeah, and you've said sometimes it's best to cut your losses. That was one of those situations.
Yes, that's one of those situations. You know, the publicity, and you are also a human being. It's hitting you. Mm-hmm. You have children, you have family, you have your mother. My father had long died, but my mother was there. In fact, I was with her in my house. She was an invalid. It hit her so hard. She died out of that. She died. And so you are like, what am I hanging on? I wasn't born a deputy chief justice. I just wanted to go and reform this judiciary, which I was doing so well. If my stay there is not tenable, I can move on. And that is what I did.
So sometimes when a door closes, it is opening an opportunity to something else. So after that, you did complete your PhD, and now you're a full professor of law.
I'm not a professor yet, but...
Oh, sorry, my mistake.
I think Americans would call me a professor.
Yes.
But in our British system, I'm not yet a professor. But I'm a lecturer. I hold my PhD, a senior lecturer. Yeah.
And you said that you can sleep easy. You can sleep easy because you did your best. What did you mean by that?
Whatever I have ever set out to do, I have always given it my best. When I served at the commission, I gave it my best. We got a constitution for which women and men and children and Kenyans are enjoying the fruit. When I served as vice chairperson of the Kenya Law Reform Commission, I reformed so many laws, including the Marriage Act, the Protection from Domestic Violence Act, the Sexual Offences Act, the Matrimonial Property Act. I put them there. By the time I was leaving to join the judiciary, the law which mattered to women had been settled. Mm-hmm. When I went to the judiciary, I hit it with a bang. I put together a transformation framework which has been quoted all over the world. It has been studied. That was my work. And I didn't sleep. I just wanted to move on with the reforms. And so I did. So I gave them the framework for reforms. And when I look back, really, I gave it my best. And so wherever I have gone, wherever I have been, I have done my best. And I can't look back and say, I wish I had done this and that. No, I gave it my all. And so I sleep and tell God, thank you for the opportunity you gave me to serve as the first Deputy Chief Justice. But what I'm happy about is that the subsequent interviews have not been as horrible as they were on me. I was the first one, so I bore all that for others to come in. Mm-hmm. I had the courage to apply. I don't think any people were going to apply for that job. I don't think women were going to apply for that job. I dared apply and face that grueling interview and get the job. And so I have shown other women that you can do it. It can be hard, but you can do it. You can overcome the prejudices and the biases and just make it. So I have paved the way for men and women to be courageous and go for what they want to get.
And one of the other things that you've said is you have to know your truth and know your worth.
Yes.
Besides working hard and doing your best, which you would advise to everyone, and particularly to women in the profession. But knowing your truth means what?
Just understanding who you are and appreciating your capacity. I think that's what I mean.
And then the other thing is, to me, you dreamed so many big dreams, but you were very strategic in how you got those dreams to come true, to make those dreams possible. What advice do you have to other dreamers out there that see a problem, that want to get a solution? How should they approach making those dreams come true or making those changes?
Have dreams and have strategies on how to realize their dreams. Dreams can end up just being dreams unless you work at them. Put your best foot out there. You and serve society also, because God has blessed you so much. You are what other people are not. You are in a position in which you can transform society and make life better for other people out there. So spare some time for those who need your services, for society. Because if we hadn't come out, if we had focused on our practices to make money, and there are those who just focused on their practices and family to make money, they are rich. But those of us who went out there, do pro bono work, share the little we had with those women to go and buy milk for their children, because you would represent them in court. So get a court order that the husband should pay maintenance. But she follows you to your office. I have no transport back home. I have no milk for my baby. So you share even the little you have. And that is what I have done, and quite a number of us have done. And because of that, I think that was the major reason that I got the job of the Deputy Chief Justice, because they looked at your background. Have you served society? And mine was more than rich. And that is what put me above the other very worthy applicants for that job.
So you were rich in another way, though, and in the best way, in terms of the richness of your life and the impact that you've had. And so what would you say your legacy, you want your legacy to be, and how do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as a hardworking, focused person who has cared for humanity, who has cared for disadvantaged people, who has given her whole for the improvement of mankind, womankind, improvement of lives of our children, of our society. We now have a constitution which makes Kenya a better place, a democratic place, a place which cares for people. I would want to be remembered for what I have done for the Kenyan people, and by extension for the world, because we keep learning from each other. I want to be remembered for being a person who dared and got there. Let women dare, dream big and dare. You can dream, and if you don't put yourself out there, then you cannot get it. I'm happy that women have dared to dream. They are dreaming and getting into the judiciary. They are dreaming and getting into the legislature, courtesy of the affirmative action that we put in the Constitution. The sky is the limit for people, not just women, for people of Kenya, because of the ground that we have made for them. I want to be remembered for that. I teach at the university. I teach young people, and I have found it the most fulfilling thing that I have done. And you can see from my history, I've done almost everything.
Right.
But this one has just been so fulfilling. These young children, they are actually children. They are coming to university, 17 years, and they love me. They say I remind them of their mother.
Right.
And I teach them first year. I'm the first one they meet, and they, oh, former Deputy Chief Justice, they are so excited. Can we have a selfie? And I want to take it to my mother, and I'm like, yeah. So the first week we do selfies, and they ask me, how did you get there? And so we spend. I'm an inspiration to them in so many ways, and I'm happy that I'm performing that role of inspiring the youth of this country, that they find me a good teacher whom they are benefiting from.
And of course, one of the big dreams was seeing your dear friend and sister, Martha Koome, become Chief Justice. What did that mean to you?
It was a sweet moment for me. That is a very worthy Chief Justice, in my view. I have known Chief Justice for many years. We were in the trenches together in civil society. At FIDA, we formed FIDA, we grew FIDA, we dreamed and brought all these reforms for women. And so her becoming the first Chief Justice of the Republic, I was very, very happy. And I was on TV telling Kenyans that you've gotten perhaps the best Chief Justice thus far. And I'm not disappointed. And I have a lot of connections in the judiciary, and so I get the feedback. They are happy that they have a good understanding Chief Justice, a person who respects the rule of law, a person who wants access to justice to everybody, and she's doing it to ensure. A Chief Justice who makes sure that members of the judiciary are living a dignified life, good reforms. So what we used to go through, being thrown out of the courtrooms because of a flimsy reason here and there, such things are not there. And so I was very, very happy for Chief Justice Martha Koome, and I have wished her the best of luck. I talk in terms of we, because it has never been I. We have always been people. Probably dreaming differently or having similar dreams, then we come together.